Hello everybody, welcome back to a new video. My name is Sarah and today I'm going to be talking about my May TBR. So this month's TBR might kind of look a bit ambitious compared to my other TBRs. The reason for that is because I'm filming this about 5 days before the end of the month, 5 or 6 days before the end of the month, and I'm taking kind of a book from April's TBR that I'm not sure if I'm going to get to, and I'm bringing it over here along with its sequel. I plan on definitely like getting to either the first book before the end of April and then the second book in May, or just the first book in May. If I can't squeeze it in into April, like I said, I've got about 5 days left, so fingers crossed that I will get to it because I've been really excited about it, but we'll just see what this week brings. So the two books that I'm talking about are Strange the Dreamer and then its sequel, Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. So if I get to Strange the Dreamer before the end of this month, then I will be reading Muse of Nightmares, but I don't know if I'm going to get to it, so I'm just kind of having both of these on my TBR. I'm just going to kind of talk about Strange the Dreamer because Muse of Nightmares is the sequel, and that would spoil this one if I talked about that one. Plus, I didn't read the synopsis of the sequel in order to not spoil it for myself. So Strange the Dreamer follows our main character Laszlo Strange, who is a junior librarian, and he dreams of going to this mythical city, the Weep, one day. And I kind of, the way I understand it is I kind of think of Weep like our version of Atlantis. And so one day this band of travelers stops into town and he has a chance to join them to go find Weep and visit it. There's kind of several things that all kind of connect to the Weep that he's stumbling across in his life. One of the leader of the troupe is called Godslayer, and so you know, kind of on his way to the Weep, you figure out what it is that this guy slayed that was a god, and then Laszlo's always had this dream of this blue-skinned goddess who is connected to the Weep, and so it's kind of him figuring out why is he having dreams about her when he's never even seen her before and never been to the Weep. So it sounds just kind of like an adventure travel story, and I've heard really good things about the story itself as well as Laini Taylor's writing, and so I'm really excited to get to it. Like I said, hopefully I will be reading it this month, end of April. If not, I'll get to it in May. So the next book that I'm hoping to get to in May is Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Now this is the second book in the From Blood and Ash trilogy. I read From Blood and Ash back in March, and if you watched my March wrap-up, you'll have seen that I wasn't a huge fan of it. However, I have heard that this one is much better than the first one, and I am intrigued enough in the series that I do want to continue it. So like I said, this is the second book, so I will be kind of just giving the synopsis of From Blood and Ash in order to not spoil anything from the first book. So from Blood and Ash, we follow our main character named Poppy. In her world, she is deemed the Maiden. As a maiden, she is prepping for her Ascension Day to the gods. She has to go kind of through this special preparation where she's not allowed to really interact with people and have any sort of like deep or meaningful relationships with anybody. She's not allowed to have any sort of fun or pleasure or anything like that. And then one day she ends up getting a new guard who happens to be quite handsome, catches her eye, and he kind of starts aiding in her questioning on whether or not she is A, fit to be the maiden, or B, whether or not her understanding of how her country and her society runs is actually the truth. And so, like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of the first one. It wasn't bad, it just didn't meet the expectations that had been kind of set for me due to everything that I'd been hearing about the book, but I have heard that this one gets much, much better, and so I'm excited to see where this one goes. So So we kind of have a bit of a theme of like sequels or continuing series in this TBR, because the next one that I want to read in the month of May is The Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater, and this is the second book in the Raven Cycle series. Kind of giving like a general sense of the series. The first book, you're getting introduced to the Raven boys, so 4 boys that go to this private school, and then Blue, a young woman who is the daughter of a psychic, and how the 4 boys and Blue kind of end up coming together in this quest to find a long lost king who is said to be in this eternal slumber, and if you find him and you wake him up, you will be granted 1 wish. This series deals a lot with ley lines and magic and folklore, and so the first book is really a lot of just setup for this series, just getting to know the characters, getting the general idea of the quest and the journey to find this long lost king. And this second book, it sounds like it's gonna follow more specifically Ronan's story, one of the 4 Raven boys, and kind of his secrets that he has, that he's it says he's keeping from the group and from himself, and kind of his how he comes into more play into this general storyline. So I'm really excited. I really enjoyed the first one a lot. The best way to describe it is it's just like this very occult, almost witchy vibe. It's very folklore centered. It's very urban fantasy, supernatural focused. And I was just really enjoying the characters and the overall atmosphere of the story. So I'm really excited to continue this series. And hopefully I love this one just as much, if not more, than the first book. The next book that I'm hoping to get to is The Grace Year by Kim Liggett. So this is more of a kind of dystopia YA thriller novel. So this book follows this community that on every girl's 16th birthday, they get sent into like this forest area to unleash their magic, so that they come back to society, I guess, like purified and kind of ready to be married off. And so we follow one character in particular. She's approaching her 16th birthday and is approaching the Grace Year, the year that she goes out to the forest. And she's kind of discovering more about what the Grace Year means, and then when she gets there, she's realizing just what it all entails and everything, because nobody really knows what actually happens. Nobody talks about it. So it says on the back here, something that I'm actually really interested to see how it plays out. It says, with sharp prose and gritty realism, Kim Liggett's The Grace Year examines the complex and sometimes twisted relationships between girls, the women they eventually become, and the difficult decisions they make in between. So this definitely sounds like a dystopian feminist novel, but it sounds like it focuses more on what women put each other through. I'm thinking kind of how women kind of turn on each other and are toxic towards each other than just the society as a whole oppressing women. So I'm actually really interested to see how Liggett pulls this off and kind of what exactly she goes into in this story. It sounds really interesting, and I've heard a couple of really good things about it, so I'm hoping that I enjoy it. So another book that I'm hoping to get to in the month of May is Sorcery, Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. Now, I read An Enchantment of Ravens at the beginning of April, and I absolutely adored it. I loved Rogerson's writing style, so I'm really looking forward to this one. This is her second novel that she's come out with, and I'm especially looking forward to this one because it kind of deals with magical libraries, which is kind of my second favorite general fantasy theme or trope, right behind magical forests. So I'm really excited about this. So we follow our main character who's training to be a librarian, and in this world, librarians kind of curate places that hold books that are like sentient. They're like these magical tomes that they kind of have to keep chained and tethered down, because if they get out, then they will wreak havoc on the world. And so our main character is training to become one of these librarians, and one day a magical tome escapes, and so she has to kind of go after it. And while she's going after it to catch it, the way that she ends up kind of catching it again makes it look like she was the one to let it out, and so now she's being charged as a criminal for letting out one of these tomes. And then during this story, it kind of unravels her perception of sorcery and magic and what the librarians are actually there for, and kind of reveals the truth behind all of that. So I'm really excited. I'm excited to see these magical books in action. It just sounds really fun, and another really atmospheric novel. And then the last book that I'm hoping to get to in the month of May is Constellation of Scars by Melissa Escu-Osley. So this is actually an ARC that I received on NetGalley, so thank you to the publisher and NetGalley. So this book comes out June 9th, and it is a kind of fantasy horror novel, which I'm really excited about. It follows this young girl who grows these like pearls off of her back. So the mother harvests these pearls off of her back. So really just growing the pearls is like a really painful, grotesque process for this young woman. And her mother keeps her under lock and key in the house, claiming that the world is too dangerous for her. So it gives me very Tangled Rapunzel-esque vibes, with a very grotesque twist to it. So then one day, the young girl decides to escape because she doesn't like being held captive by her mother anymore. And she ends up joining this kind of traveling museum of human oddities, it says. And so while she's there, she starts to realize that the world is much, much more dangerous than what her mother ever told her. And that's kind of all the synopsis covers. So I'm really excited. I love horror novels. I've really been getting into them more and more the past couple of years. Not nearly as much as I'd like to, because fantasy will forever have my heart. But I have been diving into horror more recently, and so I'm really excited to see a fantasy horror kind of mesh together. So these are the books that I'm hoping to get to in the month of May, also including Constellation of Scars, which is on my Kindle. It's a pretty hefty list compared to what I usually do. I usually only do about 5 books a month, but I'm feeling very ambitious, especially because April ended up kind of being a slower reading month for me. So here's hoping that I get to all of these books. If you've read any of these books, let me know down in the comments below. If you've been interested in reading any of them, and are hoping to get them on a TBR for yourself soon, I'd love to hear about it as well. I hope you consider sticking around and subscribing, but thank you for watching this video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye!